Sup nerds, I'm Tom.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're taking a look at Capital, or as it's now being reprinted for the US, Warsaw, City of Ruins.
I do think a rename for this game was like the perfect start to bring it into the US, because just calling it Capital and then you go and play it and it's not about Washington, you'd be like, this isn't about the capital of the United States of America.
Because as Americans, if it's not ours, then we don't know what
about
it is.
But actually naming it after the city that it's based on, Warsaw, it definitely is a good change for it. And it definitely, it kind of piqued my interest, really, because I have been to Warsaw before, and I was like, there's a game about this little, small Polish town. That,
Not only has Aaron been to Warsaw, but he could not let us not know that we were here playing it. He's like, you know that in Warsaw, I've been there, they actually have blue tiles with the number 2 on all over the place.
I actually went to a park that looks this.
There are a lot of
I was
parks.
right here, Sonny. He's old. He got old. He was old.
They do port a lot of, the things that you would see in Warsaw. All of the monuments and things are very blatantly put on here. Like they take, this picture of the Simon column, Sigmund's column.
Do you hear? See, this is what we had to go through. He's like, oh, but in real life, that's made out of cheese.
Whether you've been there or not, you can get a little bit of a history lesson by playing this game.
With Aaron.
They had 2 world wars there.
That is good to know. So, this game a lot of games have the, if you've played it before, there's things you'll know that the other people won't know. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely important to say, don't forget now, as you're placing tiles, even if it's the first round or the second round, at the end of the third and fourth round, you're going to get rid of 1 tile and 2 tiles respectively. So the tile that lets you lose 1 less tile during the World Wars, that's pretty powerful. Money is super powerful, because the first time I played this game, I did pretty well, and the second time I sat down to play with these guys, and I was trying to go for the parks, to score the parks, because you only score 1 park based off the things that are around it, which should also be noted that that's pretty hard to do, because every time you place a park tile, you're not gaining anything, you're just gaining potential for another tile to be placed up against it, but that's getting a little too deep. But also, I got no money tiles, so Wes would be like, okay, so I get 6 for this, and this lets me double that, so I get 12, and I'm like, I get 2 money. There was one round, you only draft 4 tiles per round. There was one round where I burned 3 out of the 4 tiles I took for cash. So it's important to know that money, you should definitely get money.
Mm-hmm. And because in this game, it's a tile placement game, but because you have the ability to overbuild on top of things, and not just build on top of things, but you get a discount on what you're building by what you're destroying. So if you, I had this 8 in my hand, so I'm going to build this 4, and then next time that 8 only costs 4 if you build it on top of it. Mm-hmm. So I built my city to be just a super economy engine. I was, like Tom was saying, I was getting 12 for this, and then 4 for this, and then 2 for this. So I was getting 16, 18 coins every round, but then in the final round, because gaining those coins at the end aren't going to help me all that much, I was able just to overbuild on top of them with things that would just give me points for cheaper, because I had the stuff already built, and I also had I was flush with cash, so it was easy. But that made it really cool, because you can have this is good early game, but mid game it's not so great. You can have, I'm going to build it early game, and then I'm going to cover up mid game when it's no longer that viable.
I like how loud Wes talks, because then I can fart, and we just don't even know. They don't even know.
Another tile in the game that I think is really useful are the milestone tiles. They almost work as a catch-up mechanism. Some of them, having the fewest or sometimes even the most of a certain type of building, you'll get this tile at the end of the round, and it can help you score more points. I feel that those, especially when it gave you a way to be okay, well, I'm kind of losing, but if I can go for getting the most of this one thing, it'll give me this extra bonus by placing that the milestone tile in my city, and now I'll get I'll catch up a little easier.
Mm-hmm. It also gives you, because they'll give you points for where you put them, it also kind of gives you a new strategy of where to go. Because it gives you a strategy before you gain it. Because you're well, I want to gain that, so I'm going to try and play a lot of reds or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then once you get it, you're well, I'm going to place it here, so now I'm getting points for these reds, so maybe reds is good if I put another red here. Mm-hmm. It really helps you try and narrow your focus. And it is important to have a narrow focus in this game, because while, you do kind of want to diversify your portfolio a little bit, because you don't want to have a big clump. I guess you want to have one big clump of park, and then a little clumps of everything else. Mm-hmm.
If that's your strategy. I did not care about parks
No,
at
no,
all.
I'm not saying that you need to have a big park, but I'm saying park's the only one that you want to have a big one of. Right? You want to have a bunch of little of everything except parks. It's better if you have a bigger
Unless
one.
you have that economy tile, and then you want to have a big one of yellow too.
Because you'd get
double
whatever's that. Right. But in general, it's not like, oh, I have the biggest red, so bleh. It is important like to pick a couple of tiles and like really go for it. Because like you said, like get that economy and really go for it. Or just get as many purples as you can because other things you'll benefit from it. Or the buses. The buses can be really good if you get the bus doubler thing.
Yeah.
Like it's really, if you know what you're doing and you pick a strategy and you run with it, you can get a lot of points.
With the transportation tiles, though, you have to know that they don't come out till like after the World Wars. Like there wasn't mass transit back in the 1300s when this
We get
game
another
begins.
history lesson.
So
No, the blue tiles aren't there either. Those are
so
factories
like
or whatever. Yeah,
they kind of just like trickle out. Like there's like when you look at this at first, you're like, oh man, so I can score points for all of these things, but some of them aren't even available at first. It's just the first 3, and then you unlock another one and then another one. So like it kind of progresses the game naturally without like somebody running away with just getting all the transportation tiles right at the beginning, because those can be worth a lot of points, but you kind of have to get those later game.
I do like how they mitigate the luck of like what you're dealt out by the fact that you are drafting. Obviously, in the drafting, if you get your opening hand and there's just a game-changing tile in it, you're going to draft it, and everyone's like, oh, you just lucked out because he got that in his opening hand. But typically, there's multiple things that you want, so you have to pick what you want, and you're also looking at like, okay, I want this, and what's going to help Tom? Is there something that's going to help me and would help Tom, so I don't want him to have it? Or is it worth just burning this? Like, if you're like, okay, I can't afford anything, so what am I going to burn? You're not looking for what's good or what's worse. You're looking for what's best for someone else that I don't want them to have. And I think that's something that drafting isn't always my favorite mechanic, but I thought it worked really well in this.
I feel like we kind of went a little bit out of order. We didn't really talk about exactly how you play this game, but that's been our formula in videos before. And you know what? Formula is for romance novels. We're not going to do it. We're going to talk about it right now. This game is where you're drafting and placing. Do you know that now? So it's basically Among the Stars and Between Two Cities. I felt, as I was sitting down to play it, I was like, and I was reading the rules, I was like, this is Among the Stars. And I was almost going to be like, it's just Among the Stars. But there's enough of a difference, especially with the round progression, which you don't get with Among the Stars. And it really is like right between Among the Stars and Between Two Cities. There's, the round progression and the fact that you don't have the energy cube second resource thing. That makes it different from Among the Stars. And it's a lot like Between Two Cities, but you're not building with the player next to you, and you're just trying to maximize your one thing instead of trying to, get the best of both worlds. But other than that, if you've played either of those two games, you're going to know 90% how to play this game when you sit down.
I can definitely see the comparison to Between Two Cities because I haven't played
Among the Stars.
Among the Stars. I was like, what's the
I can't
game?
even remember.
I've never even heard of it.
I never even heard of it.
It's really good.
I have heard of it, I just haven't played it.
But there is a lot of... It's very comparable to the Capital's expansion for Between Two Cities because there's a lot more strategizing where to place things next to each other in this game. In base game of Between Two Cities, it's just like, okay, I want to collect a bunch of these things. Some of these things I want next to each other. But in Capitals, it was like, okay, you need to have a bunch of different things next to each other to like really ramp your points up. And that's how this game feels. It's like, okay, you want to have as many individual red buildings as you can next to the green parks, like as many groups of red next to the parks as you can. So like doing that, and then like I think the blue tiles you can't have adjacent to red tiles, so you want to make sure those are separated or they're going to give you negative points.
You want the yellows next to reds.
Yeah.
I'm almost kind of wonder, is there like a maximum amount of points you can get? Like, I know that the rounds are different and stuff, but like, let's just say if we looked at like the last round or the last 2 rounds, and we were to take the tiles that we could potentially get, take 4 and whatever, you know what I mean? Is there like an absolute mathematical maximum of like, you have this park and this here, but then these over here? Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Like, because the multiplication table goes, it says up to, 8, and then it says 9 plus. Like, can you really have 9 plus? Would you just have all parks and just a bunch of red
Yeah,
buildings?
the park would have to be like a really skinny It would almost be like a river flowing through your whole city.
Or they just added that because maybe there's expansions in the future, and maybe there's a way to do that, and they just said, we don't want them to ask the question of like, well, what if I had 10? I had a really great time with Warsaw City of Ruins, besides having to listen to Aaron talk all about Warsaw. I think that the drafting mixed with the tile laying was really like a perfect combination of that. I love the little player marker sirens. I thought that the component quality was great. All in all, it's not a super dense, complicated game, but it just kind of hits that like midline for me where it's not necessarily an intro game, but it's not a super heavy game. I think it's just a really great, solid game.
I have to agree with that. It is a very well put together game. I think that there's a lot of really well balanced. You know, you can get points this way or this way. It's kind of like a little point salad, really. And like Tom was saying earlier, you can't, do everything. You kind of want to pick one main thing that you're going to score points on and get a couple points here and there with other things. Coins are, you need to learn that coins are definitely very, valuable. Like, you need to get as many as you can, or at least buy things that you're, like, going to score on now, and after multiple plays, that, like, okay, I'm going to buy this now, but later I'm going to build on top of it just because it'll give me a discount. Getting the tiles that are, like, bonus tiles are even more powerful than, like, they appear sometimes. Like, I got this one in the first round where, like, it gives you extra coins for burning a tile. Or there's the one, like, they're saying that you can double the bonus you get from one of your coin collections. So it's, like, getting those, it may not be very powerful when you first get it, but later in the game, after you've kind of built your town out, it can definitely benefit you. And I think that putting a restriction on the width and the length of it makes some really hard decisions, because I would build, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put this one here, and then I go and draft for the next round. I'm like, no, now I can't build anyway. I can't go out wider any because I already went too long. So I'm like, well, now I gotta try and re-strategize and like just see with what I just drafted if I can still score a bunch of points. So I think it's a good game, and if you like Between Two Cities or I guess Among the Stars, you'll probably like this game too.
I'm going to agree with both of these guys. I did enjoy the game. It is a lot of fun, but mainly because I was almost like, expecting to like it, because I do like Among the Stars and Between Two Cities. Drafting games are kind of like one of my favorite mechanics. Tile placement also kind of like one of my least, but they do balance out a lot. It's a good game, but ultimately, I do want to say that I think Among the Stars and Between Two Cities, I probably like both those games better than this one. They're all really high. They play well. They play very similarly. So it's hard for me to say that one's better than the other. It only, it's like probably Among the Stars, then Between Two Cities, then this game. See, they're really close, but I do think that both those games kind of have a little bit of an edge on this one. Maybe just because they have a twist. They have a little bit extra oomph than this game does. And I do like that Among the Stars has a lot of the text of how the cards work on the cards. Here you're constantly referring to this
one of the three-player aids and a four-player game.
Oh, that's another, that sin cannot go undone.
Regardless, we definitely think you guys should check out this game, and so we're going to have a purchase link in the description box down below where you can get a copy.
Either way, you should subscribe to our channel so you'll never be bored.
We don't want them to ask the question of like, well, what if I had 10?
Then you go, learn how to speak.
No, this is Patrick. Like, drafting is one of my favorite mechanics, and tile placement is kind of one of my least favorite. God damn it, Wes.
It would have been funny to have on camera.
Huh?
But Tom got uncomfortable.